Right now, we live in a world where 80% are reactive due to external factors like political events, viruses, lack of opportunity, and the list goes on. Ambitious Vet, are you ready to shift your perspective on what's going on and begin strengthening your resilience, your sense of self, and set clear boundaries so you can finally focus on what matters to you and your loved ones? If so, stay tuned as Dennis Volpe, retired Navy officer, executive performance and transition coach, and Forbes Coaches Council member, will bring the fuel for your batteries to be recharged so you can stay the course.
Because resilience is not about how big our battery is. That's our perseverance. That's our endurance. So
that makes sense.
We've all got a battery. And, our military service has allowed us to enlarge that battery, but our resilience isn't about how big that is. Our resilience is about how long it takes to recharge it.
Speaking of refueling your battery, thanks to today's sponsor, Alpha Coffee. Ambitious Vet, if you don't already have a premium coffee subscription from Alpha Coffee, I request you do so, as we have been having ambitious vets switch from other online, well-known, veteran-owned coffee companies because it simply does not match with their value systems. If you're ready to have blends like the Smooth Operator, a medium roast which has hints of milk chocolate, a toasted hazelnut aroma, shipped to your door every month for as low as $15 a month, check out www.alpha.coffee/ambitious vet. Again, that's www.alpha.coffee/ambitious vet to receive your 10% off discount. Alpha Coffee. It's fuel for your warrior lifestyle. Welcome to the Ambitious Vet Podcast. My name is Chris Hoffman. I'm a Marine Corps combat veteran turned social entrepreneur. Here I dive into the trenches with today's most ambitious, goal-oriented, and growth-minded military veterans on the planet to empower you with the golden grenades needed to break through new levels of satisfaction, fulfillment, and success after stability is no longer a challenge to overcome. Ambitious Vet, if you haven't already, buckle up. It's time to advance and grow in your life.
It's time to get into the trenches, dig into your purpose, and fire up your life's fulfillment. The Ambitious Vet Podcast starts now.
What's going on, Ambitious Vet? We're right back inside the trenches. Today we got Dennis Volpe on the show. Dennis currently serves as a principal leadership consultant and executive performance and transition coach with the Leadership Research Institute. Dennis is a graduate of the United States Naval Academy, earned his Master of Science in Leadership Development from the Naval Postgraduate School, and is a Columbia University certified executive coach. Dennis's understanding of leadership comes from his over 20 years of leadership and operational experience as a career naval officer, to include teaching leadership at the United States Naval Academy, serving in numerous leadership roles of increasing responsibility to include command at sea, and from a variety of academic and intellectual pursuits. Dennis has experienced personal and professional success, professional setbacks, and knows what it takes to live a resilient life. He challenges and empowers leaders to embrace the reality, define what they want, and equips them with the insight, perspective, and accountability necessary to be successful in life and challenging environments. Dennis is very involved in his community as a mentor coach, supporting military to civilian transitional programs, as well as participatory hands-on leadership programs for emerging leaders. Dennis enjoys the outdoors, is a passionate college rugby and lacrosse fan, and is an avid triathlete. Dennis and his wife, Amanda, live outside Manchester, New Hampshire, with their dog, Nimitz. Dennis, are you there, brother?
Yeah, Chris, I appreciate it. Yeah, that was probably way too long of an intro for me, but super excited to be able to talk with you today.
Yeah, what I love about your background is you've got a lot of academia background, but also a lot of skin in the game where you've had to go out and learn from hard knocks. So I'm excited to pull from both aspects of your background. It's really impressive, man.
No, I appreciate it. I was when you and I got connected, I was pretty stoked about the opportunity to chat with you.
Yeah, likewise, likewise. So, one thing I want to ask you before we dive into the content that we have organized is what's your secret with being a triathlete, right? Like me, I'm 32, right? I go on trail runs with my wife right now, and my foot will hurt for a week. What's your secret with just continuing to stay consistent with that, man?
Well, I think the big thing is you talked in the beginning about, being able to live a resilient life, and being a triathlete allows me to do that. And the whole sport of triathlon, I didn't even get into until, let's see, 5 years ago.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it's brand new to me. For me, Chris, it actually gives me the time and space I need for mental clarity.
Yeah.
Right? So the whole mindfulness piece, and obviously swimming, biking, and running kind of gets you more physically fit. So, and I've got a good friend of mine who talks about how, positive motion creates positive emotion.
Yeah.
And so I just do it because it's fun. And, in my experience in the sport of triathlon, I've just met some really amazing people that not only challenged me to be a better triathlete, but challenged me to be a better human. So the whole experience itself is what allows me to get through, wow, my knees hurt, my back hurts, and all that other stuff.
Right. I'm just being a weak Marine. I just got to own it.
No, there's no such thing as a weak Marine.
No, but it's really impressive, brother. I saw that and I was like, man, out of everything else he's doing is servant leadership, very heart-centered leader. You're even featured on Forbes Coaches Council, which is very impressive. They have a very highly vetting process to get in there, Ambitious Vet. So Dennis is doing the mind, body, and soul balance, which I think is super important for your life. So Dennis, man, I want to dive into a perspective question first, right?
Sure.
I want you to walk us through your first few years transitioning out as a naval officer. I mean, you spent 20 plus years serving this country. What was those first few years like, and what did you learn from them?
Yeah, the first few years were absolutely interesting, Chris. And I say that because I retired in Jacksonville, Florida, and I had done 3 separate tours there. So I think if I add it all up, it was about 14 years I spent in one place. So I had a huge personal network, had a huge professional network, and then I retired. And then my wife's job, once they found out that I retired, said, "Hey, you're significantly more mobile now that your husband's no longer, active duty. So what do you think about moving?" So I went, in the course of 3 years, went from the land of the unknown and comfortable in terms of who I knew and what I knew, to the land of the unknown and uncomfortable. So I moved from Jacksonville, Florida, huge Navy population, to greater Cincinnati, Ohio. Not a huge Navy, not a huge Navy town, except they did get, while I was living there, they actually commissioned the USS Cincinnati, one of the newest littoral combat ships.
Okay.
So that was kind of neat to be a part of. And then we moved again to the great granite state of New Hampshire. Now there is a Navy base on the coast, but it's been interesting. And I think that the big revelations is that change is a part of life.
Yeah.
And, as military veterans, we have to accept that. And very often you hear the words change and transition, like they're one and the same, and they're not. Change is what happens to us. It's kind of an external thing. Transition is what happens for us. It's actually an internal thing. It's a process. It's a mindset that allows us to do positive things with that change. And what were the big, learning points for me was that it is okay asking for help. And that's the amazing thing about the veteran community. Because you've got a whole collection of folks who at one point in time raised their right hand and said, hey, you know what, America, here's a blank check for you. And you can cash it if you need to. And you can cash it up to and including my life. Right, so you have that group of people that did that, and now they're back into society. And at least in my experience, the veteran community has been the most selfless group of people that will absolutely reach out a hand to say, hey, brother, hey, sister, what do you need and how can I help you? That's probably how I ended up talking to you.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. Even us Marines, I can speak on a Marine's behalf, that we can do a lot with a little. We're very resourceful. So if I have to give up my last $20 for another Marine just to eat, I'll do it because, there's this impalpable bond, right? Which a lot of us, I know for myself, even too, that I got out and, it was like I was disconnecting from what sourced my power and confidence, right? I lost it all. And I don't know if I really lost it all, but I made up that I lost it all. And to your point, just really being able to plug right back into that brotherhood. Because we're always already going to be there for each other and finding ways to continue to be there for each other, even after the uniform, right? When we're not dealing with the daily challenges of the military. Right.
Yeah, it's a great point. And when I was in Cincinnati, I was chatting with a mentor and I was like, I need to start rebuilding my network and all that kind of, the woe is me kind of let me cry my coffee kind of thing. And he's like, dude, you already have a network. Not only are you a veteran, but you're also a Naval Academy graduate. So what happened when you talked to the, alumni network in Cincinnati? And I'm like, well, nothing, because I haven't talked to him yet.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into that, helping out with the commissioning of the USS Cincinnati.
Wow. Okay.
I helped out with that. And then, for purely selfish reasons, I started the Veteran Professionals Network of Greater Cincinnati.
Nice.
And now there's two other chapters, one in Columbus and one in Northern Ohio. And it was really based on two things. I had a couple of classmates that started a beer club out in San Diego. And then I had another buddy of mine who started a professionals network down in Dallas, Fort Worth, both, veteran-centric stuff. And I said, why can't you combine the two? Why can't you have a veterans professionals network while you're having really good craft beer? And so we started meeting at one of the local craft breweries, last Wednesday of every month, just to have that connection, to have that camaraderie, to get that mojo back, if you will, like you talked about.
Wow, that's great. I love that you saw, what was missing and bringing it, right? And Ambitious Vet, I encourage you to do the same thing, right? Like if there's change happening to you, right? Like to Dennis's point, change happens to you. And just correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, but transition is something that happens for you. I love that. It's a huge perception shift that I think a lot of, ambitious vets kind of fall victim to, is just like, okay, can I see this as a transition or see this as a change? Both of them can be disempowering or empowering. And I love that shift. But ambitious vet, I encourage you and I challenge you to find ways to see your life challenges as transitions and finding ways to bring what's missing, solutions versus falling victim to circumstances. Dennis, do you have anything to add to that, brother?
No, and you bring up a great point. Because when I got here to New Hampshire, I got asked, well, what do you want? What do you want to do in your free time?
It's a scary question.
I'm like, well, I have a passion for supporting military veterans, and I've got a passion for the outdoors. And you know what? I've also got a passion for first responders, right? Because I think there's a lot of similarities between military men and women and first responders. I think the biggest difference is that military veterans go on deployment like once a year or once every 18 months, and first responders go on deployment every day. And I said, if I could figure out a way to work with military veterans and first responders and leverage the outdoors here in New Hampshire to do that, that would be amazing. And I said that to a veteran. And of course, his response was, well, have you talked to this guy? And I'm like, no, I haven't talked to this guy because I've only lived here for like 4 months. And he's like, well, you need to talk to this dude. And I said, okay. Well, I talked to that guy. Unfortunately for me, as a Naval Academy grad, he was a West Point grad, right? So we had to have that whole little clash and all that stuff and whatever.
That's always fun.
Yeah, the mission of the organization is called Camp Resilience. Is to, no kidding, I'm not making this up, Chris, to support military veterans and first responders to bounce back in mind, body, and spirit while leveraging the outdoors of New Hampshire. So the exact thing I was looking for was available, and I found it by having a conversation with another veteran who was there supporting my transition into the greater New Hampshire ecosystem.
Wow. No, that's great. That's great. Can you just kind of plug it right now? Because it's called Patriot Resilient Leader Institution, correct?
Patriot Resilient Leader Institute, and commonly referred to as Camp Resilience. Camp
Resilience. Nice. So can you kind of, just for ambitious vets to know more about that, what does that actually entail? Because that's awesome. Like, how do we rebuild our individual strength when we don't have our collective tribe around us, right? Like, can you walk us through that?
Well, what we do, we leverage the outdoors here in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And obviously we got impacted a little bit by this little thing called a pandemic. But we've done virtual sessions. And then once we're able to, we have kayaking trips. It depends on the time of year up here, obviously.
Yeah.
You're not going kayaking in the winter, but in the summer months, there's kayaking, there's hiking, there's all that stuff, but also time to really reflect on who you are, what matters to you, and what you want to do about it. So that way you can move forward in a positive direction. And, next weekend, we're actually aligning ourselves with Camp Resilience, the company that I work for, the Leadership Research Institute, and Nostos. We're actually getting together and having a career and life planning workshop. And, that's going to be a 2 to 3 day workshop followed by, 90 days of, there's going to be, an accountability program.
Like application and stuff like that, right? Yeah.
Yep.
You got to learn how to apply it. Yep.
And they're going to come back after that 90 days. And then we're going to have another 2 day workshop to figure out where they're at and where they're going and how we can support and do that.
Wow. Yeah. I love how experiential that is, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you're going right back into the trials and tribulations that had you become, an Army dog, Marine, whatever. It's kind of like a reverse boot camp type thing. So I love that.
It's not as rigorous as boot camp or anything like that.
But, it's more of a softer, no push-ups on the quarterdeck, right?
Yeah. But another program that's out there is called Warrior Week, which is down in Atlanta, outside of Atlanta, in Fayetteville, Georgia. And it's at Camp Southern Ground. For those country music listeners, that's Zach Brown country.
Come on.
Right? That's
chicken fried.
Yeah, chicken fried. And that's his, his brainchild. He wanted to start a camp. He wanted to start a summer camp, and he did. And then realized, well, summer camp happens in June, July, and August. What are we going to do with all of this infrastructure, all of this stuff when we're not doing that? Well, he's got a passion for veterans. So they started Warrior Week, which is obviously a week long, but looking at strengths, looking at, your personal priorities, and really getting to understand self and giving yourself a positive outlook on what you want to do.
Right.
And they've also aligned with Boulder Crest, and they're actually doing the Warrior Path program as well, which is targeted more towards, PTSD and that arena. More, instead of the group environment, it's more one-on-one. So they have that there. And oh, by the way, it's completely free for post 9/11 veterans. So, if you're looking for an opportunity to really get to know who you are as a person outside of that uniform, I would absolutely recommend going to Camp Southern Ground and the Warrior Week program. Yeah. And if you want to, leverage the outdoors, and you want to come up here to the Northeast, and I'll be completely transparent, based on funding, we usually limit it, to the greater Northeast area just to get people up here. But yeah, we're looking to support as many veterans as we can.
Nice. I hear expansion in that. So you guys are open to expanding it to new limits if you guys get the resources for that. So that's great. That's great. So I know we went off path, Dennis. I want to apologize for that, because you have a vault of resources that you either are involved with or in your back pocket that you can provide. So if we go down rabbit holes, I apologize ahead of time. So I want to dive into the personal leadership aspect of things, right? What does personal leadership mean to you?
In one sentence, I would say personal leadership is all about knowing what matters to you and what you can control, and doing something about both. A brief little lesson, in the life of a Stoic, I would say. But spending time understanding who you are in terms of what are your values, what's your purpose, and what are your priorities. And then managing that in terms of setting boundaries and really, no kidding, prioritizing your priorities. So that way you're focused on the stuff that you can absolutely control in your life.
Yeah.
And that being, the first thing is your attitude, right? That's the first thing that we can control. And then, the rest is, our behavior, our effort, our actions, our emotions, and our perspective. Those are the things that we can control.
Yeah. Setting boundaries was a tough one for me. I wrote that down to just remind myself of that, because I think, myself, and maybe you, ambitious vet that's listening to this, is sometimes you get so caught up in trying to achieve that next goal, whatever that is. If it's career, hobby, life, health, well-being, whatever it is, sometimes you don't, effectively communicate your boundaries. So, Dennis, I would love, man, what's like a way that we can powerfully set boundaries in our life? Because to your point, we've got to know our values, we've got to know our priorities and stuff like that. But how do we set those boundaries with incoming, ongoing distractions, especially in a world landscape that we're in today?
Sure. And, oh, by the way, I don't have it completely figured out because I screw it up on a regular basis, brother. So
there we go. Yeah.
In terms of, what works for me, Part of it is that self-reflection piece.
Yeah.
And spending time thinking about what matters to me and what are my priorities, because very often they change.
Yeah.
They're going to change when you're in uniform. They're going to change when you get out of uniform. And oh, by the way, they're going to change as your life changes and as your situations change. And spending time figuring out what your purpose is, like no kidding. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And, the two big questions I like to ask in coaching sessions is, what do you want to do? And why do you want to do it?
Yeah.
And very often, the first question, what do I want to do? Bam, people answer it. And then when I say, well, why do you want to do that? And I get the answer that we just had, silence.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough.
Yeah. And so based on that, understanding your why, understanding your purpose is going to help you set those boundaries, right? Because I'm going to make a broad assumption and say, Chris, you probably have a to-do list somewhere.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, have you ever had a stop doing list?
Still learning how to build that one up.
Yeah. Well, I've got one on my whiteboard over there. And it's always funny that I have a do, plan, delegate, and delete box.
Nice.
Right? The do box is always full. The plan box is always full. The delegate box is less full. And then the delete box is usually the one that I have to force myself to put stuff into. But that's how I look at it. And, how do you set boundaries? Well, what are your priorities? And, what are your values? And, that was one of the biggest struggles for me leaving the service.
Yep.
Because guess what? From the time I was 18 to the time I was 42, my values were honor, courage, and commitment.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And guess what? The Navy was awesome. They, not only did they give them to me, but they defined them for me. So I didn't even have to think about it. Well, those are awesome organizational values. And they're great for military service. And you know what? They're also good from a personal leadership perspective. But are they good for life decision making? No. So what are your values and how are you going to make decisions based on those values?
Yeah,
so
no, that's great.
For me, my values are autonomy, impact, and security. Autonomy in terms of being able to do the things that I want to do with the people I want to do them with when I want to do them. So that's number one. Number two, impact. Having the ability to enlighten, empower, and equip others to be the best versions of themselves so they can positively impact their environment, whether that's personally, professionally, or both.
Yeah.
And then security, the emotional, the physical, and the financial safety that I need and the people who matter to me need so we can do those other two things.
Yeah. Yeah. So you vet your daily decisions through those filters, right? And just anything that doesn't align with one of those, it's kind of just disregard it. I think one of my gaps, and it may be an ambitious vet's gap as well, in their life currently, is like, how do you communicate that you don't want to take that opportunity, but not kill that relationship off? You know what I mean? Because sometimes that can be tough because someone may really need help, but it doesn't align with your values and stuff like that. And then we'll move on to the next topic. But if you could answer that, that'd be great.
No, that's a great question. And, I got that question, just the other day. Matter of fact, I even got an email about it today.
Yeah.
And I had a colleague that needed some help and was looking for somebody to do some coaching engagements. And And I said, hey, this is not my priority right now, but if you need help, I will figure it out. Right? Because guess what? I'm a retired military officer, right? Mission first.
Yeah.
Success of the organization is part of it, right?
Yeah.
But as long as it doesn't completely negate my autonomy, but it's, oh, by the way, it's actually going to have impact. And that's, to your point, that's the filter, right? Is it, well, how is that going to impact my autonomy, right? Well, it is, but am I going to have impact? Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, thanks for answering that question. That makes it real. That makes it real. So thank you for that. So, one key thing that I wanted to unpackage is because you do talk about emotional resilience a lot, emotional intelligence, and it's, there's no, let's call the white elephant out straight up, right? Most corporations complain around veterans' emotional intelligence, their interpersonal skills. There's a Duke University study out there that says veterans are better off seen, not heard. They belong in the trades, and that pisses me off. That pisses me off. That's why this podcast exists, for one. But I want to hear your perspective on how do we build emotional resilience during times of uncertainty, challenge in life, right? And how have you personally strengthened your courage to stay in the fight as you continue to find that next challenge that you're overcoming?
Sure. Well, very often, Chris, people talk about emotional intelligence and they make it out to be this really, really complicated thing. Well, I'm a Navy guy, Naval Academy graduate. Right? We need to make it simple for me.
Yeah.
Right. And I think Travis Bradbury knocked it out of the park with his book, Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Right. He talked about the two different sides of emotional intelligence, the personal competence side and the social competence side. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, your self-awareness. How self-aware are you? Well, and part of that is knowing what's important and knowing what you can control. All right. And then how well do you manage yourself? So you've got the personal competence, which is self-awareness and self-management. And then you've got the social competence side, which is social awareness, your awareness of other people. And then based on all of that stuff, your self-awareness, your self-management, your social awareness, how well are you managing relationships? But there's a lot of stuff that's involved, right? There's self-awareness, there's self-management, there's stress management, there's decision-making, right? There's a lot there.
Yeah.
But how do you get better at it? How do you increase your emotional intelligence? Well, guess what? Start with self-awareness.
Yeah, no, that's great. Because from what I've heard from books and just learning how to deepen my self-awareness along my journey of just difficulties and wondering, I think my biggest thing in the first few years of getting out of the Marine Corps was just, why don't people understand me? Right. That's why the whole cultural misfit thing happens. Right.
Sure.
Would you say self-awareness is more of a proactive approach to life versus just reacting to problems and the world and stuff like that? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
No, you're 100% right. And there's assessments out there. I got certified in the EQ 2.0, assessment of things.
Nice.
So you can take assessments, right? So that's the quantitative approach. But I think there's negatives to those self-assessments because you're taking it about yourself. So it's really just, well, this is what, sometimes it's, well, this is how I want to be. And you're not actually being truthful. They do have a 360 version of that, which is helpful because not only are you grading yourself, but then the people who matter to you, whether that's in a work environment or a personal environment or both, are giving you that same feedback. so that, again, that's the quantitative approach. The qualitative approach is asking people who matter to you about how you're doing. Now, for military men and women, that requires two things, right? It requires a little bit of openness. It requires a little bit of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Two things we're not really trained on. But super powerful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Brene Brown is a good author on vulnerability, ambitious vets. I've read, what is it? Daring Greatness or
Daring Greatly. Yeah.
Daring Greatly. Oh man, that book really helped me start seeing the power of vulnerability and creating deeper connections with my relationships. Really helped me not kill off relationships in my life, ambitious vet. So definitely study vulnerability. But to Dennis's point, read EQ 2.0, Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Connect with Dennis if you want to deepen that self-awareness, if you want to take your personal leadership to the next level. Dennis is definitely an expert, as you can tell. He could talk hours, probably hours on this subject. So, Dennis, is there anything you want to add before we break and thank our sponsor real quick?
I was going to say, one of the things you asked about was resilience.
Yes.
And when I think about resilience, I very often you hear about resilience being the ability to bounce back. I would like to move that a little bit forward, particularly with this group, because I think resilience is not bouncing back. I think resilience is actually bouncing forward and getting from where you are to where you want to go. And to do that, the mantra that I like to think about, Chris, is mind, body, tribe, and why. Mindfulness, which is the mind part, physical health and wellness, the body part, your network is your tribe, and then why is your purpose. So making that part of your daily and weekly routine is going to allow you to be more resilient, because resilience is not about how big our battery is. That's our perseverance. That's our endurance. So
that makes sense.
We've all got a battery, and our military service has allowed us to enlarge that battery, but our resilience isn't about how big that is. Our resilience is about how long it takes to recharge it.
Yeah, that's good. That just put a light bulb in my head. I was like, we don't think about the recharging. We don't think about, just that time that it takes to sit back and reflect. Sometimes we can get so caught up in just execution. Us Marines call it hurry up and wait. All that pressure to immerse yourself into an objective to get it done, but never taking time to just sit back and reflect. Most of that reflection time is, spent, in Okinawa, having some good time on Gate 2 Street. You know what I mean? So
I've never been there, but I'm sure there's a lot of
but that's really good. Thank you for that wisdom, Dennis. So Ambitious Vet, we're going to take a real quick break to thank our sponsor, but we'll be right back inside the trenches with Dennis Volpe. Hey, Ambitious Vet, are you enjoying the podcast so far, no matter how long you've been subscribed with the show? Well, first and foremost, thank you for being a subscriber. But if you're ready to take this connection around the brand to the next level by going and joining one of our exclusive online communities on Facebook or LinkedIn, I encourage you to do so. Go to LinkedIn, type in Ambitious Vet Network, request to join the group. If you are more of a Facebook user, go to Facebook, type in the Ambitious Vet Network, go and join the exclusive, highly verified group. We're more of a quality versus quantity group, and start deepening your relationships with other growth-minded, determined, and motivated veterans inside the trenches like yourself, and create your next big opportunity. We'll see you there. All right, Ambitious Vet, we're right back inside the trenches with Dennis Volpe. He's an executive performance and transition coach, leadership consultant, veteran mentor, and Forbes Coaches Council member. And he's just been dropping golden grenade after golden grenade around how we can, bounce forward versus bounce back, and continue to strengthen our emotional resilience, how to set clear boundaries based on our values and priorities, and also how to change our perception around change that happens to us versus transitioning around what happens for us. So it's just been an amazing conversation so far. I hope you've been enjoying it, Ambitious Vet, but we're going to wrap this whole thing up with Dennis Volpe's 3 golden grenades. So Dennis, give us your 3 golden grenades, man, for an ambitious vet that's been out of the uniform for at least 3 years. And they're struggling with finding that life satisfaction, that sense of purpose, that sense of fulfillment in life. What would be 3 gold grenades you would bring to that veteran?
Yeah, my 3 golden grenades. First, as somebody that grew up playing lacrosse, grew up playing football, played college rugby, played some rugby after college, and then was in the service. When after I transitioned, I forgot about all of those lessons. And one of the big lessons I've learned and relearned is that life is a team sport. And you got to be okay with asking your team members to help. And the biggest way to do that is to build your tribe. And the biggest part of your tribe, the most important part of your tribe, and I think everybody on this podcast would definitely appreciate the fact that you need to have your own personal QRF. You have to have your own personal quick reaction force, who's those 5 to 10 people in your life that you can call any time of day, any day of the week, regardless of the topic. And they'll provide you with the insight, the perspective, and the accountability you need to move in a positive direction. So that's the first one. Build your QRF.
That's great. I love it.
And the second one is that change and transition piece. Realize that change happens to us. It happens to us every day. What we do about it is transition. So change happens to us. Transition happens for us. Change is external. Transition is internal, and it's a mindset and it's a process. And oh, by the way, transition takes time. And I'm a transition coach. And guess what? I had a transition coach when I came up here to New Hampshire because I had to get things figured out for myself. So be okay, going back to rule number 1 or golden grenade number 1, be okay asking for help, because we don't have all the answers. But guess what? I would say, based on my experience, the veteran community does. And the last one is resilience. And we talked a little bit about that. But resilience is about recharging your batteries, your mental battery, your physical battery, your social battery, and I call it your spiritual battery or your purpose battery. And if you're not recharging your spiritual battery, then guess what? Your mental toughness is not going to be where it needs to be. And you're not going to get to where you want to go. Because mental toughness is about your commitment to your purpose. And your commitment to your purpose always being greater than your commitment to your personal comfort. But if you don't know what your purpose is and you don't revisit it often enough, your mental toughness goes down the pooper. So focus on that and make that mindfulness, physical wellness, and social connection part of your everyday. If you can't make it part of your everyday, at least make it part of your week.
Dennis, that's great. All 3 of those golden grenades, I think if an ambitious vet that's listening to this right now just implements one of them, their life's going to improve, both tangibly and intangibly over the next month, quarter, year. I think all of them were just spot on and timely. So Dennis, where can an ambitious vet find out more about you? Do you have any special offering that an ambitious vet that's listening to this is, I don't want to bounce back. I want to bounce forward. I want to build and recharge my resilience. More importantly, I want to come back after these challenging times, tougher, stronger, and more confident than I've ever been. Where do they go find out more about you?
So I probably spend too much time on LinkedIn. So that's probably one place. Transitiononpurpose.com. There's a contact form on there. And my email address is dennis.volpe@lri.com, Lima Romeo India.com. And you know what? You and I have talked about this. Yeah. I'm a leadership coach. I'm a transition coach. So what's my offer? My offer is, the first 5 ambitious vets that are interested in having a conversation, no strings attached coaching session with an executive coach, so they can either talk about life, talk about business, talk about both. I'll open up my schedule, and the first 5 that contact me, it's on me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know for a fact we have at least a couple dozen ambitious vets that listen to the show on a weekly basis. They're looking to even accelerate their career path to an executive role. Maybe you're already an executive. Maybe you just want to figure out what the next step and taking the organization to the next level is. Ambitious vet. If any of those apply to you, make sure you're reaching out to Dennis Volpe. Guy is legit, the real deal, and even makes time to run triathlons, which is just crazy to me, but he does it. Well, Dennis, just thanks for your time. Thank you for the consistent golden grenades. Thank you for your servant leadership and what you're doing inside the community. It's very inspiring.
Well, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. And thank you for what you do for the veteran community. I really appreciate it. And I'm super excited that you and I got connected.
The Ambitious Vet is available on all popular podcast platforms. Go to vettrainingcoaching.com to subscribe, rate, and share with fellow vets.
Again, thanks to Alpha Coffee. Ambitious Vet, if you're looking for your next subscription-based coffee company backed with a cause and principles, go check out Alpha Coffee by visiting www.alpha.coffee/ambitious vet and get your warrior lifestyle fueled.